once again to the first of our 2023 series in the subjects under the discussions of perceptions for progress. The subject of the night is going to be health, healthcare, and black family. Now, for me, that relaxes me right away. So I'm saying to you, dear listening audience, that I hope that before the 90 minutes is up, that you'll see us as though we're in your living room. That's what I'm hoping that would happen tonight, because we need to recognize that who is the one that's most healed, well healed, is the one that we should listen to, not the one that's dysfunctional. Our representatives tonight, I consider them amongst the well-heeled. When I think about what we normally hear in the public, and we oftentimes speak about who complains, we're free to complain. How well are we positioned for solutions? That's what I would like for us to consider tonight when we are listening to the presentation tonight. And lastly, when it comes around to what's motivating my feeling tonight is reflecting on what's a good predictor. They say we should know our past if we want to understand and see how we can predict our future. So when we think about health, healthcare, and the black family, we cannot ignore the history in the black family for us to find solutions. So with that brief opening, I'm going to deliver our guests, express who we have as our guest panel. To the far right of me, to the far left of me is Imam Basim Muwaku from Masjid Muhammad, Bermuda. Next to him, in the middle, is Dr. Pete Tolbert and Dr. McCarty. Welcome.
Thank you for bestowing that doctor on me, but not a doctor, but I'll talk about that later.
Okay, yeah, you're going to have that chance.
Yes, I'll have that chance.
You're going to have that chance.
Yeah.
So to open our discussion on healthcare and the black family, we're going to ask that the Imam make his presentation at this point.
Well, greetings to the listening audience and to those present. We wish you health, healing, and happiness. And know that the one who created us is still in charge. Hope that heals us too. The Prophet, peace be upon him, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that in the body there is a lump of flesh. If it be whole, the whole body is whole. If it be diseased, the whole body is diseased, and that is the heart. The Quran says, O mankind, there has come to you a direction from your Lord and a healing for your heart, and for those who believe, a guidance and mercy. Guidance from our Lord and healing for that is really bothering your heart, mind, and soul. And that is a big problem. People cannot find solutions. The Quran describes movements taking place between the heart, mind, and spirit. Movements that make people uncomfortable. The individual is uncomfortable because something in his body is registering misinformation or false information. Carter G. Woodson wrote the book, The Miseducation of the Negro. Allah God reminds us through his guidance that most of mankind have been deceived. So he, Allah, sends guidance to correct the deception. The heart is swayed by the information which it receives. What gives the heart peace, what gives it comfort, is correct information. Receiving correct information is a big part of the healing process. Applying it is the best part. Today and in times gone by, misinformation was a tool and still is a tool or a means to control people. The soul or the heart registers or receives this information, but it does not sit right with the soul. Thus, a rebellion starts, uneasiness starts. The mind, body, and spirit are all designed for truth. They will not be at ease until they receive truth. Guidance is also in the biological makeup of man. Thus, we have the five senses. They say if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Mm-hmm. So we must pay attention to those five senses. It is interesting that there are stories in Scripture or in the Quran which speak of God sending prophets to communities and destroying idols within those communities. These idols represent misinformation or false information that turn people away from the best possible life and true worship. So here are prophets guided by God coming to people, destroying the information, that is, destroying the healthy growth of man. Man cannot get into the competition of life because they are restricted by thoughts and concepts that are unhealthy. Let's say survival is the best that we can do for most people, because most people will not rock the boat. Unfortunately, most religions have been hijacked, misrepresented. So man has not been able to reach the station in life in which the Creator wants us to reach because of that misinformation. The teacher Maududi said, religion comes to transform life, transform society, so that society will come from a purposeless life or interest to a purposeful life. And that interest is that human beings be fully benefited from the world that God created, not being cheated from the benefits that God intended for mankind. In closing, Imam W.D. Muhammad stated as said, Satan has knowledge, but no morals, so he can't be just. Incorrect knowledge can produce a just people. Incorrect knowledge gives birth to wrong-minded people, unjust people. Correct knowledge gives birth to right-minded people and true progress. And that's my little take on health.
Well, little, I say a lot, a big taste on health, really. You know, I latched on to the idea of information, correct information, you know. We're talking about the black family. We started off with the incorrect information. We need to understand how much that impacts on us today when we had so much faith in that which was improper, incorrect. And to hear the Imam say that the five senses in a very strong way is our protection if we're using them correctly. But yet he's saying that religion has been hijacked, so we're not getting what we should be getting. That's the scary thought, knowing how many people depend on direction from religion today. You know, I'm here looking at a note that was so much supportive of what he said just now. When I look at this one-liner that says, when you lose your morality, intelligence goes away. When you lose your morality, intelligence goes away. So thank you very much for that presentation, Imam Basim Muwako. Now, to get the ball rolling, we're going to ask Dr. Pete Stolbert, please tell us about yourself. Who you represent, what organization you represent, what business do you represent? Let us know who you really are.
Who I really am? Well, I'm born and raised in Bermuda, as you guys might know, and I represent first my family. So I come from a Smith clan, a Tolbert, or like that's a Smith-Tolbert clan. I come from a Peets clan. I come from a Davis clan.
Okay.
I come from Blakeness. So
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah.
So, and I knew very young, you know, growing up in Bermuda, that my calling and my true purpose was to be a doctor. And my mom told me this story today that I didn't realize. I was very young. She said I was about 5 or 6. I was sitting on these steps, and she had asked me what it is that I wanted to be. And I said, I want to be a doctor, and I want to be a children's doctor. And and I don't even remember knowing that young that was my path or what I wanted to be. I knew young because I knew in primary school that it was really solid. I knew that I wanted to be a doctor, a nurse, or a teacher, I used to tell people.
Okay.
And so it wasn't surprising, and I also knew that I had a strong sense that Bermuda was my home. And when I went away to study and did all my education in Bermuda, in the U.S. and Canada, between U.S. and Canada, that I wanted to come back. Sometimes people looked at me like I was a bit strange for coming back, because a lot of foreigners actually want to go to America and stay in America.
Yeah, yeah.
But I had a very strong sense and a strong calling to come home to Bermuda. I don't regret it. So I've been in Bermuda 10 years past all my studying. And about 8 years ago, I opened up a practice called Ocean Rock Wellness, and that's my business. And I'm really excited about that because this is a level for me to actually add into that teaching that I knew that I kind of had a purpose for as well, because the information I feel is so key. And Ocean Rock Wellness is centered around educating as well as helping people to holistically heal themselves. So that's where I come from, and that's my business. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not
So-
a doctor.
I'm not doctor.
Mr. McCarty, who are you really?
Good question. Good question. I guess I could answer that within the context of the theme for tonight,
Yes.
healthcare in the black family.
Yes.
So I came from a black family.
Yes.
I had a two parents home and a sister. At the age of 17, and I always, I guess, point to this period in my life because it had a profound effect on me.
Yes.
I witnessed my father, who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, lose a very short battle. And he passed in front of the family. And so that, again, that was a profound effect. And I
Yes.
believe, you know, your early experiences
Yes.
shape your
Yes.
choices,
Yes.
and even consciously and of course unconsciously.
Yes.
And so the choices I made in terms of my career and where I am now, I think can stem from
Yes.
that period of time. And so I've always worked in human services and always, I think, was empathetic to the mental health needs of people, whether it was they were going through grief, depression, etc. So I've started my career as a primary school teacher,
Okay.
and so I got a degree in early childhood education,
Okay.
and I enjoyed those years.
Yeah.
But then I left and went into probation. And while I was in probation, I was sent abroad to complete my master's in clinical criminology.
Okay.
And that dealt with the mental health
Yes.
of people or individuals who are either criminally offended or had
Yes.
mental or personality disorders. And
Yeah.
so again, I was about the healthcare, the mental health care of people.
Yes.
At this stage in my career, I'm a part of a business. It's called Mask. We provide therapy for males.
Okay.
So it has that very unique focus on providing counseling for males between the age of 13 to late adulthood. And of course, we're dealing with the gamut of mental health issues. And of course, even though we're dealing with mental health, we're invariably going to touch on the other dimensions of health, whether it's
Okay.
physical
Yes.
or
Yes.
otherwise.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so that is what my work is involved in at this point. I work along with two other therapists or co-founders of Mask, Fitzgerald Williams and Dr. Ernest Peets. I think you're probably familiar with
I told
with
you I'm
Dr.
from
Ernest
the
Peets.
Peach Clan.
You're from the
so
Peets Clan.
yes, we're all related.
yeah. So, yes, that's my story. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
You know, with you saying and mentioning very clearly and directly about your experience and your profession, looking at the male, and you know what's along with all of that.
Yes.
You know, the minute be considered that this subject of healthcare and the black family, you know, I find that people feel as though we're doing a disservice putting the emphasis on black men where it's a Bermuda family. And I really believe that we need to make a distinction, because the old adage used to be, the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Okay.
The squeaky wheel.
Yes.
If there's no problem with the wheel, there's no need to give it attention.
Yes.
So I think we will be doing Bermuda a disservice to act as though we don't understand the difference between the outcome of the black family versus any other family. Knowing that our history is so distinct and separate. So I really believe that, and I say this to the audience as I speak also, that we need to get out of that fear of being responsible to both sides of the equation. And when I think about what you said, I can't get over how I'm bothered looking at the amount of males that's walking the street as outpatients, man.
Right.
And how much younger they're getting. Years ago, he used to be a guy you knew that done something in his later years and has ended up in a bad way. But now, you got young chicks, you're saying, what's happening? So when I think about you wanting to come back home, Dr. Peets, and you saying that you're evolving and focusing like you did just now, how do you feel about looking at that, knowing that you're in Bermuda just like me? You're not blind, we see it.
There is something real, and I respect the idea of focusing on the black family, because my observation in coming back to Bermuda was I've worked for over a decade. I had Ocean Rock Wellness, but on the part-time, I worked at Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute as their medical doctor.
Yes.
And my training is pediatrics and internal medicine, so I'm double boarded in those. And so I was mostly there to support the psychiatrists in the medical need. And what's very obvious is that if you walk into an inpatient ward in Mid-Atlantic, majority of the patients are black male.
Right. Yeah.
Like a big majority. You might have one or two white background, has a Caucasian or other descendant, and maybe one or so females. But the rest, 20 or 30 other patients, they're black males. And I remember coming home and observing that over the last decade and being like, what is it that our wards are so full with black males? So what is going on? So prior to us getting to sit down her, I've already been thinking about it.
Okay.
And, just trying to figure out, okay, what's going on her? What is so special, that about the black males that is leading them to be so vulnerable to end up at Mid-Atlantic or in an inpatient ward situation? So it's really good for us to slow down and have this discussion and bring this awareness, because with the awareness, like you said, a closed mouth doesn't get fed, a squeaky wheel doesn't get oiled, then hopefully we can kind of help to give the black males or black families a little bit more support that they need, or there's some enlightening that's going to come there.
Right.
So I think it's great. I think it's good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just to piggyback on what Dr. Pete Talbot was mentioning is particularly as her involvement with Mid-Atlantic Wellness Institute.
Yeah.
So I used to serve on the Mental Health Review Tribunal, and so that dealt with matters in which patients were seeking to be discharged, in simple terms. And they were 100% black males, as you mentioned. And, a lot of them had, or all of them had, comorbidity, comorbidity or co-occurring disorders.
Yes.
Is the word I'm trying to say. So it wasn't just the mental health diagnosis. A lot of times it was a substance use diagnosis.
Yes.
Treating the mental health, one could debate which came first or what have you, but a lot of times the patients were medicating themselves because of their mental health issue.
Self-medicating.
Self-medicating,
So you
yes.
looking
Yes.
for other substances to deal with their mental health challenge.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Now the origin, which is I think what you were referring to, you know, why is it? You know, the origin, I guess, is up for discussion. You know, what was the reasons that or issues that led to the mental health disorder are, you know, things to consider for study, but also more so, why is there so many black males? You know,
Yes.
why is it a disproportionate number of
Yes.
black males?
Yes.
And it could be historical, I'm sure.
Yes.
I'm sure it could be also other social factors,
Yes.
but it is disproportionate.
Mhm.
Yeah. Even for our majority in the country, I'm sorry.
No,
Even
no, no,
majority
no,
numbers in the
continue.
country.
Yeah.
But that's, yeah, but yeah.
I believe, you know, in hearing what you guys, how you opened up, I actually felt as though you already are displaying a concern without you saying it, because that drive of wanting to come back home, it's not isolated. I'm pretty sure you could explain it if you had to. The idea that it doesn't bypass you, that you end up sick, but there's something else
Right.
that needs to be touched on because you didn't pick up that stimulant for just a stimulant. Like I recall, well over 30 years ago, I was reminded of a family where this wife had to go down to the bar and bring her husband home because she knew once he didn't come home at a certain time, she knew exactly where he was. It wasn't about him being with his mates. He was at the liquor place getting drunk. Now, she went down there often and pulled him out of the place and took him home. And she said to her audience, she's telling a story. She's telling this story. She says, I did not see my husband as a drunkard.
Okay.
I wasn't angry because he was drinking. I knew what was bothering my husband that made him drink. And she knew that the life that he was left with was burdening him. Whereas he couldn't be the man that he knew he needed to be. And he drowned his sorrows in liquor. And his wife knew that. So she didn't allow anybody to call her husband a drunk. He wasn't a drunk. He ended up drinking because of a different problem. So that's why that piece about the history and the health of the black community versus the health in general, you know, in the context of how we've been affected by miseducation. I'm sure the imam that even in religion, we have all types of people that comes in the door looking for God, but the way they perceive God sometimes is a problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And something that came to mind, what you just said about her husband she didn't see him as a drunk.
Yes.
And I always wonder why she said, I'm an alcoholic. And I said, for me, it was something wrong with it. It may help people and all that.
Yes.
But if your base self is not an alcoholic,
Yes.
and if you can see beyond that, then we can really see who we are.
Yes.
As far as black males, I argue that we live in a system that has not changed it's slowly changing,
Yes.
but we live in a slave-operated system. And so, as young men, they may have been turned off by not being able to do this or that, and the spirit just got killed. I think that's part of the problem. Misinformation,
Yes. Yes.
there's a lot of that around.
Yeah.
What you can and can't do.
Yes.
But does the Lord say it? Well, we couldn't read, so
Yes.
we didn't know.
Yes.
So, but again, going back to that, there is something in our heart which causes us to rebel because we know there's something wrong with this. Something happened to me, it's something wrong, I can't put my hand on it. And so therefore they find other means of trying to solve the problem. It is said that you can't corrupt the soul. The mind can play tricks on you. Your body may play tricks on you, but you can't corrupt the soul. And the soul is that piece that is God given. He says, I breathed into them a part of a piece of me, so to speak.
Yes.
A portion of my spirit.
Yes.
And that spirit tries to keep us going on the right track. But if we are surrounded by different cultures, different attitudes, it's popular to do this or that, then sometimes we deny, we push that soul speaking to us, we just say no. You know, I'm going to follow my mates or my friends or society. Other times it's the opposite, whereas I want to do this, I don't care what it takes, if I have to die, I'm going to do it. You know, so. Yeah.
You know, in looking at what you said and how that distinction you made about the corruption or not being able to corrupt the soul, and that spirit, you know, the spirit of a person is a driver. So when I think about that, my mind goes to what's the correlation between the mental and the physical diet when it comes around to giving direction to the patient. You know, what should come first here in order for that patient, if they were in front of you getting guidance, how would they be able to put their priorities, you know? If the spirit needs to be strengthened, physical food ain't gonna do it. If we're looking at the thinking of a person, it doesn't matter how much physical food or what type of physical food they put in. If they're thinking badly, they can make bad choices of the physical food. So how do you all deal with that? And for us to see that we should understand the priority listing.
So I'm going to push back just a tad bit on what you said, and it's probably nuance more than anything.
Okay.
And if I need correction, I'm sure Dr. Pete Stoll would clear up the incisions, the doctor. But I do think that what one eats has bearing on their mind and even the spirit. So I don't think there are. I don't think we can separate these parts of us. So, you know, we're made up of not only the physical, but the mental, the psychological, the spiritual.
Yes.
And so food really is, in my opinion, so the doctor could correct me if I'm wrong, it does have a bearing on our health. You know what I mean? So there's not separate. You know what? I also know the word diet when you use the word diet, because there are some people, the school of thought that because it has the word die in it, a lot of times one's diet is not optimal for our health, but we should have a lifestyle experience or something that we live. We should live it. So eating foods that are alive, that can help in our health, whether it's mental, physical, and so on. Now, certainly, food alone isn't the key, isn't the panacea, if you will. But it is key in the sense of it's a property that you can use in conjunction with other things that you do in order to treat the health of the individual.
Yes. Now, you ran across something real quick, and I would like to bring it back to the audience because I believe it has some value to you. You said live food. Give them an idea of what you're suggesting when you say live food.
Live food. Okay, so I've now dug a hole for myself. Dr. Pete Stolberg chime in. Live food, anything that's raw. Things that grow out of the ground.
Easy.
You know, plant-based.
Anything that your grandmother could recognize as a food, that's easy.
Thank you.
But you know, if it's been on a tree, come from a tree, you know, grown from the ground, you know, that it is, you know, it's been grown.
So that's live.
Whole food, live food.
And I believe me, I know what you want to be here.
Yes.
Most people, because they're not got that connotation already there, it needs to be expanded, you know, because we're a takeout type of people now, you know, fast food people, man.
I heard a story once where people didn't distinguish between Kentucky Fried Chicken and a chicken walking down the street. They didn't know that's where the chicken came from. That's how far off you're going. It has to be bought in the store to be good.
They say that kids are now getting so disconnected by, where food is really coming from. I mean, but you have so much stuff in packages, and a lot of that, I think, is because people don't know better or what to eat. It can be more expensive. It is
Yes.
true. It is
Yes.
true. But there's also a misperception that even though it may be more expensive, it's harder to get it in, But there are ways, because I've had patients who are on financial assistance to be able to wiggle, more fruits and vegetables in their diet. So that becomes very tricky. And it's really, this is such a huge topic. Like, I don't even know how we're going to fit it in an hour and a half. Because we've touched in little different areas, right? And when you say when I approach it and when I think about it, because I had some time to really just digest this a little bit, I know that if we come here and we've been here, we came through we lived through slavery. So our ancestors that came here were survivors, right? They survived a very long journey. So we have survivor genes, right?
Yeah.
And that's that. And then you have this whole cultural, second grade citizen, probably even lower than that, and getting these scraps, right? You're getting these scraps at the table, and then our diet was structured around what we could get, leftovers and this and that. So there started to be a huge disconnection about how we was nourishing our bodies pretty much as soon as we was taken from Africa, right?
Yes.
And then, and that still plays into the food that we like or we're eating. It's over salted, it's this, it's that, it wasn't never really good quality. That became our foundation. And now we're trying to raise healthier generations off of this really horrible foundation.
Yes.
And then you have this separation of the whole family unit and disconnect. And we haven't talked about that either, because it's not so much about, because there's a difference, right? Because black women went through the same journey as a black male, right? When we think about slavery, we have that foundation too. But then there's this big disconnect about the structure also in our family. We was divided and separated and sold and this and that, and we haven't recovered. So the black family dynamic is off from that standpoint. To be raised in a 2-parent home is a great blessing as a black family, but that's not all. And a lot of people, families struggle with that. And so you got a lot of cracks in the foundation.
Yes.
You got to grind. And so when I take on a client, I don't think of a box, so let me teach them what to eat. You have to talk to them from a mind spirit. What are you thinking? What's your visions? What's your goals? Okay, we could get around to what they're eating, but we also got to talk about the nurturing relationship. And I really wonder, as far as health for black males or health for black people, is how much nurturing and love they're getting.
Yes.
And I feel, you guys can tell me, but I feel like women are more nurtured, asked to express their feelings, and they can be told to be a squeaky wheel very early, so they will get a lot of help and assistance. And I don't think that that's there for black male. And I feel like how they're raised is not, it's one to be very strong, maybe, but inwardly strong, not to say this is this. But I also know that black women, when they raise their sons, and they say and I heard this from a friend, is that historically black women wanted to be very hard on their children because they would rather discipline their children or be because if they didn't do it and they went out, society would do it, and that could mean that they got lynched or this or that.
That's right.
We had to kind of go there.
Yeah.
And so it's this real hard dynamic because they'll rather be the tough one than for their son to have to be suffer at the hands of society.
Yes.
So I think I see that still.
Yes.
And I feel like by the time now that in so many ways we don't have the lynchings and this and that, right, as society, and in so clear, right, in other ways, right, you
Yes,
say, Mom, like,
yes,
it's not
absolutely.
as, nobody's going to be hanging from a tree, right, we agree, right, kind of, not,
Depends how far south you go. Depends how far south you go.
Okay.
Yes,
Being lynched in a different way.
Yes, that's what I mean.
yes,
It's in a different way.
yeah.
It's in a different way. It's more subtle, right? We could agree that it might be more subtle, but I still feel like men don't get to put them. There's like they don't get to be nurtured and loved and be able to have that voice that they need, especially when they struggle. And so when they start to experience anxiousness or things are not going well and they're experiencing grief or something like that, or something comes devastating for them, everything is held inward. They've never been given that time to release, and then they start to look for marijuana, they start to look for alcohol, they start to look for other things. And the marijuana these days isn't what it used to be. It's not your grandma's marijuana. It's that on a million.
Yes.
And so the THC that's in it now is just like so potent.
yeah.
And so these guys are going into psychosis, paranoia. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
that in mind, and look, I wish you were free to even say more. In light of not being restricted to the 90 minutes that you got, right? So what little you deal with, it's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
That's a whole mouthful you said just now.
Yeah.
If you compartmentalize it, right?
Yeah.
But I think about what you've been through already in your professions. Do you have, or what is it you could say of your experience of the male, in this case, being able to give you what you're looking for as far as understanding what's their problems? Are they free
Are they free?
to express it? Do you get what
Okay.
you're looking for when you are trying to get it out of them?
Not. I guess I'll be generalized. I'm going to generalize, of course, but it is, of course, case by case.
Yes.
But generally speaking,
Yes, yes.
initially, no. But at least they have the awareness that they are unable to express themselves completely, that they need to increase their emotional intelligence. So
Okay.
at Mass, we do, of course, our clientele is only males.
Yes.
So, and we haven't been, what's the word, we haven't had a lack of clients yet. So they are coming, so it tells me even though they have some challenges in expressing, in being free, as you said, they have the awareness
Yes.
that it is an area in which they need to work on.
Yes.
And so that's, the role of the therapist to,
Yes.
to help the client explore that and to tap into that
Yes.
resource
Yes.
that is probably held inside, but is very deeply held inside.
yeah.
Do you
Dr.
know?
Yes.
Do you know why? Well, because you only see males, but
Right.
do you? And you understand that there is something disproportionate, right?
Correct.
Agree. So do you have a sense of why? Because I'm always about root cause, right?
Sure.
So I feel like if we could figure out the reason why something is an issue, then that's where we know. If we know the problem, then you can find a solution.
Sure.
So I wonder why are males having issues with developing that emotional intelligence, so that they're
Right.
struggling by the age of 13. What do we need to be
Yes.
doing
Yes.
before that?
I guess one of the things that comes quickly to my mind is males are supposed to be strong. No
Sure.
weakness in them.
Sure.
You're lion of the pack.
Yeah.
So you show weakness, then
Don't cry.
don't cry.
Yeah, you can
So
cry.
you go from there.
So yeah. So basically, you're talking about socialization. So I think that's perhaps one of the reasons, but also education or miseducation. There has been, I'm sure studies out there where how females are educated and how males are educated, and so a lot of times there's a co-ed education system, and that may not necessarily be ideal for males because they are in environments that they're taught mostly by females.
And it's not conducive to how they need to learn.
For the most,
Yes.
for, in a lot of instances, yes,
Yeah.
yes, because you know, it's natural that the student will draw from whomever is in authority over them, and so they're getting one, I guess, dimension. It's important to have that, know that female side, but it's equally, if not more, important that they get the balance
Yes.
from the male perspective. And so a lot of
Yes.
times I think it's education or miseducation.
Yeah.
It's definitely socialization. So some things have, you know, that are systemic, that were put into systems to disenfranchise, to really affect the health of black males, whether it's a mental health, physical health, and otherwise. Because you mentioned slavery. We know that when slavery ended, the world wasn't a utopia.
No.
We know that they continued slavery through other mechanisms,
Yes.
through other modernizations.
Yes.
And so, you know, we still need to deal with that part. I think, Brother Combal, you had started off with talking about healing. And so I think not only black males, but since we're focusing on that, need
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah.
And so they need spaces in which they can do that, whether it's in this classroom. So maybe they need specific courses or times of the day in which they can have instruction, have curricula that's designed for them. But of course, you know, our females need the healing as well.
Are you thinking that even in primary school, you know, black or males period need to be kind of sanctioned off and have more of a male kind of figurehead or education that's directed to them,
Sure.
but include some emotional intelligence in the.
Sure.
Oh, that
No,
sounds like an idea. That's expanding into the school system.
For sure.
There you go.
It's just
As you were
fun, yeah,
talking,
yeah.
as you both were talking,
Sure.
and I'm just loving it.
Yes.
I have a friend that is a principal,
Nice.
right? And he gave me a storyline that I never forgot, and it's very relevant to what you both were talking about just now. In light of what problems some of the students were coming to school with, he saw the need to go beyond whatever he got from them when they were directly questioned, because children sometimes struggle to really tell you the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
You know, particularly when there is dysfunction in the home.
Yeah.
They love their parents and they don't want to expose their parents. That's how children are, man.
Yeah.
So he said he didn't spend as much time trying to or looking at what he didn't get from the student at school. He would go to the home.
Yeah.
He wouldn't even tell them why he's going to the home. He'll find a reason to get to their home
Yeah.
to assess what their home situation is.
Yeah.
And when whatever he found at the home helped him to now address the child.
Yes.
Now, when we think about what's so real about the conditioning that has caused us to be so dysfunctional that we seem to accept as normal behavior. Because we've been dysfunctional so long, we've normalized dysfunction. Like, I'll never forget my good friend over there that's watching us right now. He came to my barbershop one time and he said to me, "Man, I just left a home where, man, these people are breeding ignorance, man." I said, wow, he struck me, man. I said, "What did you say?" He said, "Man, the way they're carrying on, you could see, man, the family is in such disruption that they're developing ignorance, man. They're promoting ignorance. The children are like they are because of what the family is, man.
Yeah.
They're breeding ignorance." So when we look at what that is saying, that's a hurtful thing to accept, man. But it's real.
Yeah.
That some of these situations were parenting because of what has gone missing.
Yes.
Now, see, what I loved about that story about that woman and her husband and saying that she did not want her husband to be misunderstood.
Yeah.
Because her responsibility. She never lost that. The family knew that the strong one in the family was the mama. She had such a strong foundation. She knew how to hold her man together until he got it together. She didn't throw him away.
Yeah. Yeah.
She done what was required to get him to survive this trauma until he got help. And he did get help. And when he got the help, he became such a powerhouse, man. And the family told the story about the mother saying it was her understanding of her role that kept the family together and allowed the husband to get what he was looking for. He was looking for something, but he couldn't find it. And it was burdening him because he couldn't get what he knew his family needed. Poverty has a lot to do with
Yes.
us not buying good food.
Yes.
I'll never forget a story where this guy told me, man, this is over 40 years ago. He said, I'm going to give you a little hint of how our children are conditioned and how much they suffer because of poverty. He said, imagine two women taking a little child. You know how we like pushing the grocery cart, right?
Yeah.
I used to love that, man. Go in the grocery shop.
Yeah.
Man, I love pushing the grocery cart. So you got an excited child who's inquisitive, and most children are.
Yes.
One child goes to a mayonnaise bottle and picks it up and starts reading from it and saying, it's more than one type of mayonnaise here, mama, blah, blah. And he tells her what he wanted her to hear about the mayonnaise, and she hears the story. Then she tells him, but I like this one here and not that one, so pick up the one that we like. And that child gets educated by just talking about what he thought about mayonnaise. The other child comes in the store, grips up the same bottle of mayonnaise, and the mama runs to him and says, boy, put that down, because if you break it, I'm going to have to pay for it, and I ain't got no money to pay for no broken bottle of mayonnaise.
Right.
So put it down. He said, look at what happened to those two children. One got educated because the one could afford to have a broken bottle of mayonnaise.
Right.
And the other one, they couldn't even believe that them ones can come out for a broken bottle of mayonnaise that they can't pay for.
Yeah.
They can't eat. So that child in poverty is getting restricted because of the limitations that poverty produces. When a child should be free to express themselves, and when you hear what's on their mind, then you educate them to what is best for them.
Yes.
Boy, that never left me, man.
Yes.
So when you think about how many other things are associated, like going into a neighborhood, like my son told a story to his mama, he never told it to me, man. He said whenever he was on the bus, he used to like being on the bus because he could look over high walls. He said when he went across some neighborhoods, the property was so big that he saw a football field because he loved football.
Yes.
He said, man, I wish I could live over there, man. I could have a nice game of football over there. He said, in other places, man, it was so small you couldn't even kick a ball because you would break somebody's window.
Right.
So he said he grew up believing that he needs a house with a football field on it, man, because I like playing football.
Yeah.
So he was being driven to have a choice of where he could afford to be, knowing the difference between the properties. Why? Because he liked football. And he said he didn't get to see these other eloquent, very prestigious properties until he was high up. On a bike, he couldn't see over the wall. But on
Yes.
the bus, he said, I could see all those properties. He said he used to love riding the bus just to see the different types of property that he wasn't used to.
Right.
Yeah.
See? And he came from, and that's my own child. 6 children, things were tight, egg mate, humble beginnings.
Yeah.
But he would never talk to me and saying, I wish I had a big field. He didn't say that. He
Right.
played in the yard. I'm not got no little small yard.
Yeah.
But he said he liked playing football where he wanted a team. So he looked at big property.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure we could relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is one's socio-economic status has bearing on all activities of life. You know,
Yes,
it has
yes.
a bearing on what they're able to access, whether
Yes.
it's healthcare, proper healthcare,
Yeah.
proper education, proper so on and so
Socialization.
forth, proper socialization.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, proper exposure to different things. You know, so that's why we see disparities in certain races or groups because of the socioeconomic status.
Yes.
The more money you have, the more access you're going to have to the things that you require, the resources that you need in order to advance and prosper.
Yes.
And so, you know, that story of the grocery store and the two children, you know, the mayonnaise bottles, that's a very good analogy, I
Yes.
think. It's,
Yes.
and it's representative of, like I said, of groups,
Yes.
or in this instance, the black family,
Yes.
in terms of we see
Right.
disparities in income and so on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was talking with my godfather and my godmother, who are so smart, and I was asking about that. I have 3 girls.
Yes.
I'm not as blessed to raise a black male,
Okay.
even though I'm surrounded by them
Yes, yes.
in many ways. So I was asking them why do they think? Because we was having a lot of discussion about children who just seemed like they weren't reaching their full potential, and I was like, why do you think that is? And they was like, they thought that it was a sense of entitlement. Oh, Bermudians, you know, especially young Bermudians, it's a sense of entitlement. And there may be some entitlement there, but that's not what I'm seeing. And I thought about it as I was leaving the house. I was like, you know what? I'm not seeing kids or young males who are acting entitled, because I've seen entitled children act, and they're very demanding.
Okay.
Get me this, do that for me, right? And I'm just like, to me, that's entitlement, because they feel like they deserve it and they're worthy, and they are sitting and waiting for people to bring it to them. What I feel like I'm observing is unworthiness, which is almost the opposite.
Unworthiness, you said?
Unworthiness.
Okay.
That I'm not worth more attention. I'm not worth this for you. I'm not worth that for you. When I go and I give attention to these guys and I'm giving them that, they light up like a Christmas tree. Some of them are very sheltered, though. It's very hard to kind of get them out of. But some of them, you can see that they're not used to having somebody give them some sort of attention and care, and focus on them. So it is tricky, but I get that, and I feel like when you're shut down and you're told, no, you can't have this, you can't do this and this, it's a sense of unworthiness, and then you don't feel like you're worthy of a good job, or you're worthy of a good education, or you're worthy of anybody's attention
Yes.
to help you with your situation or your problem.
Yes.
So
And
Yeah.
I've heard that. There was an imam, I can't remember his name, but he's also a doctor in education.
Okay.
And he said when the children came to his class, they felt that unworthy. So he said for the first couple of classes, all he did was tell them, ask any questions you want. They started asking questions, they started opening up, and then he started put things in perspective for them.
Yes. Now, with you making that point about opening up, and this is where I know, only because of the experience, life experience of raising a family of 6, and to see what comes from a child when they're free. Like I was saying to my wife just a couple days ago, man, we used to have an exercise in our family. Once a month, we used to say, this particular day on a Sunday, where people are very relaxed, that you could talk to your parents about anything you want to talk to them about. Say what you want to say without any expectation of retribution.
Okay.
Feel free. You're not can get punished. I don't care what you think. Say whatever's on your mind. My children used to say they used to lick their lips waiting for that.
Yeah.
They said, "What? They couldn't wait for that."
Yeah.
They said, "Man, because they used to hear us this, that, and the other." And they said they wanted us to know how they were seeing what we were doing, man. And the fact that I wasn't going to get punished if I told them the truth, man, I couldn't wait for that Sunday, man. So we got a lot out of our children from that particular expression, opportunity for them to express themselves without fear.
yes, yeah,
And they told us some things we needed to hear, man.
yeah.
And we were blessed to be able to get them. And I say to them, even today, my youngest is in his 40s. I say to him, when I think about what you guys impressed me with, is that you've always respected affected us as parents. I know you didn't like a lot of things about what we done, but I always knew that even when you were rebelling, you were rebelling even with respect.
Yeah.
So the idea of wanting our children to give us what we want to see now, no. If they develop correctly, they'll end up there.
Yeah.
So when I think about the problem, or not problem, but the people you're dealing with, when you know what the problem is, what's your experience in you getting to the point of them not being open to hear the truth about what you're really seeing as the real problem with the client? Because sometimes you know the problem, but they're not open to take what you're about to tell them. What's your experience in that area?
That's a good question. So in therapy, there is diagnosing that occurs. However, in terms of the treatment, yes, it emanates from the therapist, but also primarily the client. So it's about questioning in ways in which the client can come up with those discoveries on their own. So it's not, so even though there may be within the therapist-client relationship, I may say this is the presenting issue or the diagnosis. It's I'm not going to say, oh, now you need to do this, X, Y, and Z. It's about them thinking about their thinking. It's about exploring different treatment modalities in which they can come up with the answers, because, you know, ultimately, I believe, and evidence has shown us that, you know, the answers lie within. You know, the healing lies within. The discoveries lie within, and so we try to draw that out of the client. Yeah.
Have you found, in saying that, have you found that your clients, your people, say things that you want to hear to get over with it? Just okay, I'm in therapy. Let me see what he wants to hear. Just like they'll tell a parent.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, you know, I've got to tell the parent this because this way I'm gonna get punished.
So yeah, so that tells me they probably don't trust the therapist as much, or are not ready to trust the therapist, because they are if they have that particular perception, and so then it appears to me that, you know, the therapist will have to work at building that trust, building that rapport, because if they are coming to therapy, the presumption is that, you know, that they're willingly, that they're to be honest with themselves, because really it's not about the therapist. Sorry, maybe touching the mic. It's not about them being honest with the therapist per se. It's about them being honest with themselves.
Yeah.
Particularly if they want to see growth, you know. So, yeah.
When we look at what we see in society, as most people are saying, we're going in the wrong direction. Everything is weakening. Families weakening, people's unwillingness to discipline themselves. If you have an indisciplined parent, what you can get out of children, you know? When you have neighborhood, I've experienced in the last year and a half 3 neighbors in my neighborhood that have not been around too long. They don't want me to know them. Believe me when I tell you, it's 2 of them. I've never seen their face front on. They don't want. One keeps a helmet on, goes in and out of the house with a helmet on, and the other one, when she drives up, whenever she's to face you, she looks on as though something's on her neck in the car.
Right.
They don't want you to see their face because we're getting neighbors that don't want to know you, that don't want you to know them.
Yeah.
Where years ago we got educated by the relationship of neighbors.
Right. Right.
So we got children
Yes.
coming up with this environment, and they see that, hey, they could F me off because my mama don't want to have no relationship with me anyhow. Meaning that they know that their mother don't want to have a relationship with me. So if they ask me off, they know they ain't gonna get no help from my mama. I'm not gonna get no help from the mama. So that child's free to be what he wants to be. Because he knows his mama's not gonna get in the way and try to correct him. So we're talking about questioning how much of our dysfunction is being passed on. That's why that idea of breeding ignorance, man, it struck me heavy, man. Because I'm not so sure how many of us are really aware, because we're being conditioned to respond to certain. Like I was in a grocery store one time. I was looking in this freezer chill place for cheese. A whole lot of cheese was there. So it's first thing in the morning, just around 7:30, and this person walked up beside me and says, "Hey, man, hey, this cheese here, man, you should get this one here, because there's a lot of slices in it, man, and it's inexpensive, man. A lot of cheese in here, man, for a good price." I said, "Yeah, thank you for that information, man, but I appreciate that, but I'm looking for a particular type of cheese." As I was talking to him, I realized he had a Heineken's in his hand, in a bag. He bought the Heineken's first, and now he's looking for cheap cheese. He bought the bad liquor first,
Right.
and is buying cheap food. I smiled at that. I said, "Look at this here. He's encouraging me to go cheap, but he's looking out. He's not looking out for his thing, because he may not know what he's doing to his own self, but he thinks it's helping me."
Right.
You see, I didn't get angry at that guy and make fun of him. I said, "Just look at this, man. He's trying to help me economically, but he's doing a disservice to the more important thing, his body. He's drinking liquor before he's putting good food in his body first thing in the morning."
I wanted to say something that, or speak to something you mentioned earlier, and is about the neighbor situation.
Yes,
so,
yes.
so I think as an educator, I didn't include this part in my, I guess, introduction, but I'm also an educator.
Yes,
And so I think most things can be solved through education.
yes.
So with that narrative of what is going on with your neighbor,
Yes.
I think your overarching theme is about values and what the black family used to value. So it sounds it's like
Yes.
back in the day you valued knowing your neighbor,
Yes.
getting along, speaking, and so on.
Yes.
And those values
Changing.
are changing.
Yes.
And so perhaps we need values-based education that can reintroduce those valuable values, if you will, because they served a community, particularly black family, back in the day.
Yes.
And you know, to bring it back, I don't know what it would take. Well, I do values-based education. I don't know how how potent that work would be, or you know, intense, but it could be something that could be explored.
Yeah.
Because values obviously are important. They help, you know,
Yes.
prioritize what's, you know, important for families, for communities, and
Yes.
for the nation at large.
Yes.
really.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why
Yeah.
that thing about when you lose morality, intelligence goes out the door. You know, that's why that stuck with me.
Yes.
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 In the context of putting it under the umbrella of value set.
Right.
Now, with the idea of looking at neighborhood and value, what's in me is respect.
Yes.
You know, I don't need to go down that list of things that comes under value. I've been brought up to respect, man. Whatever deserves to be respected. And when that respect goes out the door, man, anything comes after that, man. So we're looking at a modality that is in front of us. I was looking at the Grammys here lately, man. And this chick comes out on the stage and says, when you hear people telling you that you're scandalous and you're a rebel and you're a troublemaker and you're all these negatives, she said, you're on to something. Don't let them tell you something's wrong with you. You're on to something. If you're scandalous, if you're a rebel, if you're a troublemaker, and she had a list of things, a laundry list of things that's unacceptable behavior when it came around to respect for other people. She said, when they tell you you're in that category, don't let them convince you that you are. You're onto something. This is front and center. And this person was the top dog of the night on the subject she is talking about.
Right. Right.
She was the one that they put out there to sell an idea. So what I'm getting at, man, this we're not just ending up like this. We're being conditioned. And this idea of the type of education, I think that we need to show that we are seeing it like you just said, and we need to adjust the educational structure to address it.
Even you're talking about television shows and the Grammys. How many television shows are there that show that structure for the black family? For instance, I look at the United States and they have the problem of guns. Every show, the gun show solves a problem on every show.
Yes.
CIA, FBI, gangsters on the street, the guns, they don't sit nobody down negotiate. The guns just solve the problem.
Yes.
So they're being programmed that the guns should solve the problem, so they have a.
Yeah.
And so for the black family, we don't have that, what we're saying, we don't have that great structure anymore.
Yes.
I mean, we never really had it, but at least we had something to stabilize us.
We had one person put it this way: what little we had was enough to hold us together until we got what we didn't need, we deserved.
Well said.
What little
well
we
said.
had was good enough. That's why I loved that scenario and that narrative about that wife and her husband. What little she understood about her responsibility as the first teacher in the family. She wanted her children to understand your daddy is not a drunkard. You may see him drunk, but it's no drunkard. Your daddy wants to be a better human being, and the society is beating him up. That's what she said. Society was beating up her husband, and he was responding like that because he felt that he couldn't do nothing else but to relieve his own soul because the system had beat him down.
Yeah.
And that's why I say we cannot look at healthcare and the black family without recognizing that our best predictor of the future is in our history.
Yes.
Our best predictor for our future.
Right.
And we're falling in the problem of having the public to give us something else. All you need is to get it together, be one Bermuda. What you mean one Bermuda? The system has always been two Bermudas. And you want me to act like it's only one Bermuda? No. Be one Bermuda and I could act like that. In the meantime, I want my children to know the truth. I'm sending you to school and your teacher is not your best direction because he has bad habits. I'm your best direction. Tell me what he's telling you and I'll tell you if you're going to obey him or not because I can't trust your teacher. That's the situation I'm in right now. That's how I raise my children because I know this society is letting me down in protecting my family. So how many of us are really recognizing that? So in the context of you guys' profession, it's a business, I get that. But I'm pretty sure, knowing what you both said of how you've ended up with what you're doing, I hear concern.
Yeah, definitely.
I hear concern.
Yeah. The
So what are the concerns that you could have us to hear that if you had to say something and never see us again, what was it that would you want us to know that comes from your profession that will put me on the path of looking at life in the best way possible from your point of view?
well, I'll go. Can I go first?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
So my real line of expertise and what I've given before is just an observer, and because I am holistically minded and when I see somebody, I want to work with mind, body, and spirit as well. But my real line of expertise is really the root cause. And so what I'm learning more about it now is that certain addictions, certain issues with bipolar or this or that, or just plain old health issues like eczema and this like that, all stem from nutrient deficiencies. And like I said, so it always ties to, really encouraging like lots of fruits and vegetables and getting lots of even vitamins in, really high, good quality vitamins in. we're also, we haven't even touched on this, but this is my line of expertise as well, is the amount of chemicals now that we're getting exposed to, and how to help to detox the mind. Because unfortunately, if your mom is having a high diet, or maybe had like mercury placed in her mouth or things like that,
Okay.
we're now talking about a baby who's got a brain full of mercury, because that's growing inside of her. And so now we've got children who have got ADHD and autism. And I think about more the toxins coming from the mom. So that's a real huge thing. And then we talk about the psychosocial dynamic. But what I really, really hone on is what is going on underneath the body. And what really is happening with the body is like real three things. We're not putting enough nutrients in. We've got way too much toxins in our environment now, so they're coming into our bodies. And that we're got also, because of that, our immune systems are completely confused. And so you have chronic infections. And some of these infections, like the herpes virus, CMV virus, EBV virus, can actually affect not only the physical body, but the mental body as
Yes.
well. And so that's how that's real, my real zone of expertise, and helping people to heal from that way. And yeah.
You quickly said mercury in our mouth. Are you talking about fillings in the teeth?
Yes, old metal fillings are one of the biggest. So we used to use that a lot. The dentists don't use them anymore.
Yes, yes.
And some dentists actually will talk to you about removing them. Even when you remove them, you can actually introduce a lot of mercury in the mouth. But historically, they're made of mercury, and that mercury seeps into the body. And then we was getting pharmaceuticals that have toxins in them as well, and so kind of inundated with that, and that has started from a long time ago. And so then you got all these chemicals. But yes, and so I think about we see some degradation, and like I said, there is this psychosocial cultural dynamic of it, but then there's this toxin load also that's happening, and that really is affecting the IQ. And they say, not only are you saying morality breeds immorality breeds that ignorance, all right,
Yeah.
but it's you're getting these toxins now, and you're killing brain cells, and they're seeing an actual decline in IQ that we haven't ever seen before, because usually our IQ was getting better and better as our generations were going, but now we're seeing a decline. And we're also soon probably going to see a decline in the life expectancy, and you have seen it in other countries, that we're not getting healthier, we're not living longer, and it's going to be more and more evident because our bodies are just inundated with too much toxins. We're not putting the nutrients in to heal our body. And because we just don't know, and because of that, we're out there for any type of pathogens to start to attack our body and our mind.
So what is it that you think we could take away, if you had something to say to us that would help us to look at the types of things that you're addressing daily, that the public should want to know about, those type of people you're dealing with every day when it comes around to our young men and their not just physical but mental state that has so much importance in making decisions?
Yeah, that's it's a very important question. It's a very big question. I'm going to borrow or lift some of the things that Dr. Pete Tolbert mentioned, and in terms of introducing more nutrients, the proper nutrients into the body, because it has, and I mentioned this earlier, a direct bearing on one's mental health and every other aspect of their health. I think your question involves, I guess, more so the social health of the black male, and what solutions can we look at. So we understand that black males have, and the black family have undergone trauma, and that has persisted. And so I think it's the social remedy will be to provide healing and to introduce education about so that they can recognize that they are traumatized and that they need healing. And so introducing educational programs, normalizing mental health so that you can speak about your trauma to get that addressed will be the key solutions for the problems that we face.
In your experience at this point, do you think our society is doing enough in that area of having us to see through education on what you just said? Has your experience put a concern on you, whereas it should be beefed up, or are you satisfied or happy with it the way it is right now?
I can say, I mentioned earlier that I'm an educator, so I work within the public education system.
Yes.
And I will say that at the start of the pandemic,
Yes.
2020, there was a push and worldwide for social emotional learning to be bolstered within the schools.
Yes.
Because during the pandemic, a lot of times we were either in shelter in place or having to work remotely or in situations which we were not familiar with or used to. And so, again, it was a drive, it was a push for more social emotional learning because under those conditions, young people, students were suffering with anxiety, depression, and so on.
Yes.
And so I do think things have been bolstered and enhanced within the school system in terms of social emotional learning and throughout society in general, mostly due to the pandemic.
Yes.
But also I think the tide has been changing because we see a lot of American celebrities speaking about mental health, trying to normalize addressing mental health and rather than letting things worsen. And so I do think there is a shift, there's a paradigm shift amidst, and so a normalization I think is occurring. Some may want it faster than others, but I do think it is happening.
You're seeing good signs.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, go ahead, buddy.
No, I was just wondering how much deception is in the vitamin field.
In the vitamin.
Vitamin.
Yeah, in terms of, I go to the doctor. Doctor says you need this because the doctor told me once. He says, you should get so and so vitamin. I said, yeah, but
Yeah.
which ones could you actually tell me that's going to work for me?
Yeah, there's a lot of deception.
Yeah.
So it's not unregulated, right? And the FDA, says that. And then there was one guy who actually did a research, and he took a bunch of supplements, right? And he said that he started all of them to see exactly what if they had what they said they had in them. And majority of them, somewhere like 80% of them, did not have in it what they said they had. So there's a big deception, which leads another layer to the problem, right? Because you can't go out and say, I'm going to do this vitamin, it's going to be good for my health, when you could actually be ended up with taking sawdust or something like that, right? So, there are some companies that are vetted or who open up their labs to third party testing, and you can say, okay, well, yes, they have exactly what it has in it, or they call them physician grade, and they will only actually sell them to physicians or reputable people to make sure that they're that people understand the quality. But yes, there is a lot of deception, and there's a lot of confusion, and there's a lot of miseducation and also misconceptions about what this actually does. But what's unfortunate is that our dependency on them is so much more vital now because the nutrients are not in the fruits and vegetables like it used to be, because our soils don't have the nutrients like they used to, and here we go. It's this multi-dysfunctional problem, which means that it needs a multi-functional solution.
Circle of life, huh? I'm after hearing what we've talked about just here lately. My mind is on something that was said, Brother Imam, having to do with social and moral responsibility. This writer who put a lot of attention to the success story of people who fought for human rights, civil rights, workers' rights, and how society has gained so much because of the sacrifices that these great contributors made. And nations have been improved because what they brought forward was tried, true, and tested and proven to be better. And people responded to it, and in turn they raised their consciousness, they raised their culture, and all of that. So he said, when it comes to the black community, he says, you have in your background great contributors in this area. They've given and made sacrifices with their life to bring this information. He said, but at this time, I would suggest that the black community consider what they might have overlooked because they were working so hard in these other important areas also, that the time that they gave in those areas might have caused them to overlook their responsibility to their own lot in recognizing the importance of morality and social responsibility to each other. Not to try to give an attention to what the outside is saying. We have too much dysfunction that's preventing us from getting the benefits of what we know is good for humanity, period. So he said he would suggest that the black community reconsider how much attention they put to their moral and social responsibility to themselves. As a man of religion, how do you look at that suggestion?
That's a man of religion, eh? I say that because all men are religious, whether they realize it or not. And so, yeah, the moral responsibility, it has to be, we have to have faith in something. We have to have belief in something. Something that is bigger than us, something that is greater than us. If we don't, and we think that we're the best, we're in trouble. And I think that's where we're fell short. I was listening to a program the other day, and they was talking about the man's responsibility in the home. And so they interviewed this guy. I guess he was popular in the States. And he says, no, if a woman's making $150,000 a year, then yeah, and she can lead me. So there was no moral responsibility. How much you bring home, that was important. And so and I guess sometimes we were working so hard to give everything to our children and make our children comfortable and make our families comfortable that the things have overtaken the moral responsibility. The true foundation of the person. Yeah, because if we don't have that, then we go for anything. Yeah. And it's interesting because we talk about slavery and how it's affected us, how it's still affecting us.
Yes.
But it's always been, when we read the Quran, I guess in the Bible also, that God has always sent help to oppress people. Some of them didn't accept it, but I believe also that the devil is so slick that he gets into religion and he changes the narrative. Sometimes people are paid off, if you want this, well, you say this. There are certain Muslim countries where the government dictates what is said at the Jumu'ah prayer.
Yeah.
So what's happening in society, don't worry about it.
With you saying that, one of the reminders that public has perceptions. When you said the word devil, what comes up in people's mind of who the devil is, we need to have that cleared up, because when we think about what devil steps in the way according to the way you just wanted us to understand it, I'm wondering how people saw that devil. Who's that devil? What's that devil?
Well, the Quran gives you the story of how when God created, he said he's going to create a Khalifa, a leader in the earth.
A Khalifa?
A Khalifa, or I'll say leader, just to make it plain.
Yes.
A leader in the earth.
Yes.
And there were angels and there were jinn,
Yes.
and the angels said, "Okay, well, we know what you know." And so the jinn, he questioned. He said, "Hey, like, you know, I've been here all this time. What you mean? You can create somebody that makes bloodshed?" And God says, "No, I know what you don't know." And so he gave man the responsibility. And this jealous fella, let's put it this jealous
Yeah.
fella, he decided that I'm going to prove you wrong. And so he's still trying to prove God wrong. And so there's a mindset.
Uh-huh.
There's a mindset that goes against what is natural, what is proven,
Yes.
that has been proven.
Yes.
And he goes against that,
Yes.
you know.
I once heard.
And I say that because you really can fight God.
Yes.
So he focuses on man.
Yes.
Well, I can't beat him, so I'm gonna deceive man.
Yes. In fact, a very quick approach to that devil was one writer put it this way. He said, if you really want to have a quick snapshot of how to recognize the devil, he's recognize the people that wants to dominate others. Yes. So in light of what we've done over the course of this 90 minutes,
Yes. Yes.
we have 5 minutes to wrap up.
Okay.
Starting with you, my dear brother, Mr. McCarty.
Thank you. So yes, I want to offer my thanks once again to Perceptions for Progress and for this discussion on healthcare in the Black family.
Yes.
You know, although we may have identified a lot of problems, hopefully throughout the 90 minutes you also heard the multitude of solutions that were given. I know at MASK, the organization which I represent, we aim to be a part of some of these solutions.
Yes.
And so in terms of offering therapy to males age 13 to late adulthood, and you know, there are other agencies and organizations that do the same. And so if we can all, as partners, as stakeholders in the advancement of the healthcare and the Black family, take our parts or take up our mantle
Yes.
and do our part, I think it will go a long way in serving us
Yes.
and our community. So,
Is
thank you.
is
Yes.
MASK an acronym?
MASK stands for masculine. Yeah, so it's not quite an acronym, but an abbreviation. And so masculine, of course, is identified with males, and so that's how we came up with the name. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Dr. Pete Talbot?
So, you know, in our few minutes to wrap up, I'll tell you this. My dad is an electrician, and I used to help him a lot. And so one of the things that I'll do is I'll bring him his tool belt when he was at work. Sometimes I'll be with him. And so what I've learned from my practice is that I'm not a doctor who thinks that I'm the tool belt. I'm not all the tools. If best, I'm a Phillips screwdriver at best, okay? And there is so much tools that you sometimes need, especially when you're dealing with a big problem, right? So the bigger the problem is, the more tools he asks me to handle. And if it's a small job, yes. And so what is really important for people to realize is that, you know, I think there is a higher power that has blessed us with a tool belt, and you have to be able to recognize that you don't have to be everything, and be cautious of going to people who think that they could be everything for you. You have to know that you have to get different tools to help to fix your problem, and it might be a lot of different avenues that you have to be. Eat a lot of vegetables, get your rest, and know that everything is going to be fine. Be grateful for everything that is in your life that's going well, and that really will help you with your health.
You have 45 seconds, Mr.
I'll leave that to you, Ann. I think, yeah.
Thank you very
No,
much.
I don't.
I want to thank you
Thank you.
all.
Yes.
I felt very good in what I received out of this discussion. I
Yes.
think it was comprehensive, and I'm pretty sure it's not going to be the last time we're going to bring you here. Because this is a very broad, like you said, it's a broad subject.
It's
Yes.
huge.
And we need to prioritize what the community needs more than what we covered tonight. So I thank you very much, each and every one of you, for your contribution. And hopefully the next program will be in the next 2 months. We started a little late. We was hoping to start in January, but we've started. And hopefully the next program will bring you up to scratch within the next 2 months of when it will be. Thank you very kindly for tuning in to the program Perceptions for Progress. Have the rest of a great evening.